My goodness, is it time for this again? Why, yes it is. It's time again for the Fifth Mascot, starring Mr. Satin, Mike Canan, and the Cincinnati Reds, Ken Broo. Welcome again to this show that's all things Cincinnati Reds baseball. And are we ready, gentlemen, at this sitting, on this show, to finally raise the white flag on 2015? Mike, are you prepared to do this?
It's pretty close. If it's not now, it's coming pretty soon.
So it's like
the next couple of weeks.
It's not like dun dun dun. It's more like dun dun, and that third note hasn't hit yet.
It's like we dialed 9-1 and we're just waiting to
Right.
press one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. What do you think, Sam?
I'm going to hold on until we make that big, huge dump trade. So I'm going to hold on. I still, there's a little bit of light because we did win one game out of 50. So, there's just a little bit. Not much.
That was a great game.
That was wonderful.
The walk-off, that was
You
great.
thought those dudes looked like they won the World Series.
I think they thought they did.
All right, who's the first to go? Cueto, Leak, or Brian Pena?
Brian Pena?
Brian Pena is the
or
most
Brian
marketable.
Price.
Well, I mean in trade. Because I think that they're shopping Phillips. We know that. But I think of all the other guys, the most marketable is Pena. And if you really are going to rebuild, why not?
Well, I think you could also deal Chapman.
I deal him kind of last
Chapman
week.
would have the most value. It's just a question of whether they want to get rid of him or not. First of all, if you're out of it, what else do you have to come to see at the ballpark besides Chapman throwing 104 miles an hour? I think Pena could be the first to go because he's kind of a piece, but the only thing is, you don't know what's up with Mesoraco. He doesn't look like he's going to catch this year. I read somewhere in an unattributed sentence in a story that he may never catch again, but it wasn't attributed to anybody, so I don't know if that's fact or.
But, that was me. I think you read that.
I think you said it. But really, who cares? I mean, so you get rid of Pena. So you go with Tucker Barnhart and what's this? Shipwreck? What was the guy's name? What was the guy's?
Oh yeah, he's from G.I. Joe. Shipwreck.
Kyle Skipworth.
Skipworth. Go with him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter about all that other stuff. And Chapman, I would have traded last year. He's a luxury this team can't afford. I trade him to an American League team, but you're only going to face maybe once every 6 or 7 years. And be done with them and get something, anything back that can help you with the rest of this garbage that's out here.
Yeah.
Chapman, by the way, wouldn't he be? Some team might actually think about making him a starter. So he may have added value.
There's a novel thought.
Yeah, I mean,
some teams should have thought of that a couple of years
ago. Yeah,
ago.
exactly. So he may have added value in that regard too.
I don't know. I can't see anyone trying to make him a starter at this point in his career, but maybe. Who knows?
Do you think that we're going to trade anybody before the All-Star game, though? I mean, that's the thing. No. We could lose another, I don't know how many more games, 85 more games before.
This All-Star game thing really bothers me. I mean, it's 5 days, really 3.
Sure.
And the problems you got before it, you got to have after it. So we can all go whoopee like we're going to the Bahamas for 3 days, and then we're coming back to the lean-to whose roof leaks. And it's like, okay, this is great. Yeah. Now what?
Well, and I mean, it's pretty clear they're not going to have any starters in the All-Star game. I mean, the closest guy was Cozart.
Right.
And he had 3 guys in front of him. I mean, I think Frazier was in third, but by a long shot. And when you got Matt Carpenter and Arenado at third base, I mean, Frazier's got no shot at that.
And if you get
unless they both get hurt.
If you dump like Brian Price right now, isn't he supposed to help manage that game?
Yeah.
So I mean,
he's
like,
on
what
the
do you?
staff. That'd be actually really interesting.
Yeah, and you would think if he's there, he's going to want to put his guys in. Right.
Right.
So I don't even know how you juggle that.
My guess is they won't do it. They won't make a move on Price until after. They may even know this thing is just hopeless at this point. So just behave like the emperor has no clothes. Just keep running these guys out every day and just say, okay, then when the All-Star game goes, we'll. But I think everybody knows that's kind of disingenuous. Let's talk about the Reds Indians. Mike Leake began a disturbing trend continued it, I guess, against the Indians. Indians sweep 3. Iglesias not good. Desclafani good. Leak not good. 1 for 20 with runners in scoring position. Satin, that's not good.
I don't understand it. I mean, you see some hope every once in a while. These guys started off killing it, where usually a lot of these guys come on at the end of the year.
Right.
When we're down by 30 games or whatever, but I don't understand it. Don't we have one guy that can just get that one key hit? Every team has one guy, that you can get in there. And I feel like every other week, oh, it's him, and it's just that guy's never showed up this year.
The thing too about this week or that weekend with the Battle of Ohio was the defense just was pathetic. Did anyone else notice that?
Yeah.
No,
It
yeah,
was really
absolutely.
bad. I don't know if the hitting and the pitching's effect. Now it's starting to transition over into the defense, but it was awful. That one game, especially, I can't. Was that Saturday night or Friday?
It was
terrible.
Sunday. They
awful.
basically gave away 4 runs. They had one inning where
Right.
they had 2 plays that should have been double plays that they made. Maybe, I think one of them wasn't charged as an error, but as a play they should have made. I was at the game on Saturday in Cleveland, and the defense was amazing, but they couldn't hit. And then the other 2 games, they couldn't get any defense, couldn't get any pitching. That seems to be this really weird, and I even saw some quotes of Jay Bruce talking about this really weird pattern. So when they get good starting pitching, the bullpen's awful.
Yeah.
The bullpen's actually been great for the last couple of weeks, but the starting pitching's been awful. When they hit, they can't play defense. When they play defense, they can't hit. It's like there's always something that sabotages them, and they can never put
it
a
all
complete
together.
game together
Yeah.
or
No, you're right.
over any stretch of baseball. It's like they're a great defensive team, and then there have been a couple games where they've just played
Horrible.
really lousy defense.
And then Leak, who, he was looking like one of our best pitchers, is all of a sudden not faring too well. I don't,
yeah, he's
I don't know
been
if it's getting to
struggling
him
big
too or
time.
what, but
I was just looking up some stats before we came in here, and actually Leak and Lorenzen, even though Lorenzen's only got like 3 starts, have the same wins above replacement at this point because Leak has just dropped so low, and it's actually negative.
Which is bad because that's one of the guys that I think they look at and they say he's either going to be a piece of this team going forward and we're going to sign him, or we're going to trade him. But either way, you have a hard case of doing any of that as long as he's throwing the way he's throwing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's something mechanical because the one game he walked like 4 guys in 1 inning or something like that. He walked a run in. I mean, that's not him at all. Like he's normally a pinpoint control guy, and when he's getting hit around and walking guys, either he's got something mechanical, he's got an injury, or he's tipping pitches. One of those things.
And
Zero
mechanical.
confidence too. I mean, this whole team has no confidence. They're not, people talk about playing loose and all that, but play professional.
Right.
Like go out there and do what you need to do to get someone out or get a hit. I mean, it's just the basics aren't there. The fundamentals aren't there. Right?
Perhaps he needs his pistons adjusted.
hey, well, at least the younger guys are doing. Lorenzen was a nice surprise. I think the last time he went
was.
out, he was really good.
Yeah.
And then DeSclafani, I mean, his ERA's in the 3s.
What happened to Matt Lucan?
I don't know. I think he's golfing or something. You know what? He's suspended.
I heard there might have been some sort of insurrection that he was
Yeah.
in. Yeah, and so you slid in, Mike? That's nice.
Slid in,
Brian
yeah.
Price got him.
That's great. That's great.
Not the great Matt Lucan, but I'm
No,
here.
no.
I'm here.
Off
Rusty
the
Blake's here
bench.
too.
I see Rusty, and Brian's there, the
Yeah.
quiet one. See
Yeah.
Trent Rosecrans' brother, D. Trent. Then they play the Rockies, and that was a bag of donuts, except for Game 2, where again Lorenzen pitched well. I don't know why Lorenzen and Iglesias are just in the starting rotation, and you would have Cueto, you would have Leak, Lorenzen, Iglesias, and then who?
Marquee.
Yeah.
No.
Well, if you have your 3 rookies,
No.
DeSclafani,
Yeah,
Lorenzen,
DeSclafani.
Iglesias,
Yeah.
Leak, and Cueto, that's a pretty solid 5-man
Yeah.
rotation, I think, the way those 3 young guys have pitched.
I would much rather see that than see Jason. He's trying his best. I know he is, but I mean, it's not working. All these moves that Walt Jocketty made in the offseason, it's not happening. Marlon Byrd hits a lot of 1-run home runs, but other than that, that stuff's not working.
Yeah.
I'd much rather see him say, okay, look, we realize this thing is messed up 6 ways to Sunday. We're going to start all over again, but honestly, we're going to start and do it right. They'd still get people to go down there and watch because the fireworks crowd will still go down there and watch. The bobblehead crowd will still go down there and watch. And the people that want to see Aroldis Chapman, throw 160 miles an hour go watch. He'll sell tickets, but just be honest with people. Just say, hey, it's not working. It didn't work.
It's pretty bad. I mean, his whole thing is getting like these older players to sort of fill out a team, and It's a new way now. You got to have youth, and we just don't have that anywhere,
Yeah.
and that's the struggle right now.
Well, and you can't do that in a market like Cincinnati. He was able to do that successfully in St. Louis, where he was. First of all, they had a good scouting network and a good system to promote players, but then they were just bringing in guys like Holiday and McGuire and stuff like that to fill out your roster. You can't do that in Cincinnati. I mean, they have I think one of the biggest payrolls in the division, if not the biggest payroll in the division. Wow. But a lot of it is locked up in Votto, Phillips, Bailey, now Mesoraco, and those guys aren't producing to the level of their contract. In the case of two of them, they're probably not going to play the rest of this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty rough. You know, one of the things that I think they have to really look at too is they got to really be scouting the other teams' minor league systems right now, and they've got to make some really shrewd trades. And I know the tendency is to load up on good young pitching in your minor league system. They have good young pitching. The problem is they got no one who can come up and play as a position player, with the exception of maybe that Suarez guy they got from Detroit in the Alfredo Simon deal. The rest of their prospects from Double-A and up who might even remotely be ready are all pitchers. I mean, they're great. There's some really good young pitching depth there. But who are you going to plug into the outfield? I mean, who are you going to plug in when Brandon Phillips retires and you need someone to play second base? You know, you've got Votto for a while. You've got Phillips, I think, for 2 more years. You got Bruce for 2 more years. I think you got Frazier for 3 more years. Mesoraco for 4 more years.
I don't think drafting is the problem with this team. I think developing players are the problem. Because you can't make a mistake in any sport. In the first 2 rounds of a draft. There are too many analytics out there. There's too much videotape. There are too many scouts that are seeing these games in person. Other than someone that maybe gets injured, which you can't control, I think it's downright impossible. But what do you do with that player to get him through the system, to get him to the major leagues? I think that's where it breaks down. And along the way, you've got to have, besides your first and second rounders, you've got to have that 9th rounder, that 13th rounder, that 18th rounder come through as well. I think they've got a problem with the people that they've got working in their minor league systems. I think they've got a problem philosophically. I think they've got to look at that because the guys that are bringing the talent in, the scouts, I think they know what they're doing. I think it's getting that talent along the way. They've got some serious issues. And if I'm running the franchise, if I'm Bob Castellini, that's the first place I look.
Well, you look at a guy like Frazier, and I mean, he's just now sort of coming into his own as a major league player over the last 2 years at age 28 and 29. That's about 2 years later than the normal window, if not 3.
Wow.
So is that, I mean, yes, some people are going to be late bloomers. Is that just the case of late blooming, or is it the fact that he didn't have a solid position for about 3 or 4 years in the minor leagues, so he was learning a new defensive position every year, and maybe they didn't do a good enough job developing him as he began to move up in the majors.
You see a lot of these young kids on other clubs where they come in as third base, they play short, they play outfield. I mean, they do that everywhere. I mean, look at the Cubs right now in their youth. They're playing everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you look at our guys and it's like, you know, is Negron the future here? And it's like,
No.
you want to believe
No,
it.
the answer
There's
is
no
no to
way.
that.
If it is, it's a bleak future.
Exactly. But I like how they're throwing them in there. But still, it's
Here's
tough.
This is what I'm thinking. They say this team is homegrown. They have all these homegrown guys on it. But look at the regimes that drafted those guys. This regime, Jocketty's regime, the only guy he's got on that roster of any note, unless I'm missing somebody, is Mike Leake. And Leake wasn't in the minor league system. He came straight out of the draft into Major League Baseball. Everybody else came under Krivsky, O'Brien, or in the case of Joey Votto and Johnny Cueto. No, Joey Votto. They came in under fancy pants, with leather
O'Brien?
pants. No. You kidding me?
Leather Daddy?
I don't think they have anybody on left in their
Jim
roster
Bowden.
from
Jim
Bowden.
Bowden.
Yeah, well,
Bowden.
Votto was Bowden.
Yeah.
Votto was 2002.
So they have, I mean, I think you got Hamilton, who's not exactly lighting the world on fire, and you've got Leake for sure, those two guys. Lorenzen, Iglesias were through the job.
They bought Iglesias, they bought Chapman. Lorenzen
was drafted as a center fielder in college, and they turned him into a pitcher.
Yeah, so
Seems to be
speaking
working
of
out
the
pretty
young
well.
players, who do you guys think is of the three rookies is going to have the best year in the rotation? Is it going to be Lorenzen, Iglesias, or DeSclafani? Lorenzen looks, especially after his last start, was pretty darn good.
I think they've each had one just completely dominant start. Lorenzen, his last time out. Iglesias, not his last start, but the start before that, before they put him in the bullpen when he went 8 innings and didn't give up a run until the 8th. And then DeSclafani's actually had a couple. He had back-to-back starts where he went a total of 15 innings and didn't give up a run. So he's had some flashes of brilliance, and I think he actually leads the team in quality starts, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's partially because Cueto's missed a start and that kind of thing.
But if you're going to go with these guys, go with them. This whole business about, we want to make sure they don't pitch a lot of innings and this. Who cares?
Right, in and out of the bullpen.
You know what?
Stuff,
Fine,
right?
okay. Start them when they get to that point. You're going to be out of it anyway. Bring up some gasoline can from AAA and throw him in there. It doesn't matter at that point. What matters is, are these the three? Are you going to see enough of these three guys in games that matter that will lead you to believe that they will be three of your starting pitchers in 2016?
And I think that's the problem. Like, this team, they can't reach a decision point of what they want to be or where they're going to go. So they think, all right, well, if we use them up right now, we're not going to have Lorenzen and Iglesias and DeSclafani in the playoffs. Well,
yeah, right.
I mean,
it's like Washington with the one pitcher, Strasburg. Like,
and I wonder how much is that as
them.
Castellini not wanting to raise the white flag. I mean, he's probably, it very may well be that he's at odds with his baseball people. Maybe Jocketty wants to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe Castellini say, no, I'm not going to give up. And this, well, I mean, at some point, you got to stop being a fan and you got to just say, look, hey, if you couch this the right way, it's going to be okay with your fan base. But you keep running this canard out there every night, and people are going to get hip to it, and they're going to say, I'm done with it.
Well, PR, too, with that. I mean, yeah, there's a way to spin that and play that a positive way.
Yes.
For fans that, hey, we may not know everything, but we're going to get down there. We want to see the game. If you're going to tell us, hey, this is why we're making those moves, and we're going to be winning in 2 years from now, I mean, that feels good to me, rather than, you know what, there's a deal out there for Cueto. We're not going to say anything, and then we're not going to move on it. We're not going to move on it. All this kind of stuff.
I think you're both right. I mean, I think the fans in markets the size of Cincinnati, and you couldn't pull this off in New York. You couldn't say, oh, we're going to do a rebuilding and we're going to unload all our top talent. That's not going to fly there. But I think fans in markets the size of Cincinnati have seen the success of places like Tampa Bay and Minnesota and Oakland, where it's just constantly shuffling guys in. As soon as the guy gets close to arbitration or gets close to free agency, they make a deal and they get 3 more guys back who are just as good as the guy they just traded. And they have 6 years of service time left coming to them. I mean, that's essentially what they did with Latos. They traded Latos for DeSclafani, who has 5.5 years of service time left. I mean, that's a good net win in terms of the product on the field, because I think DeSclafani is going to have just as good of numbers as Latos by the time the year's over. It's good, so it's good on the product on the field, and it's really good in terms of the business side of
I
things.
think that's what the fans really come to see. I mean, I remember when Homer Bailey came up, there was all this, people couldn't wait to go see Homer. Same with Jay Bruce, Joey Votto when he came up. I mean, the fans like watching these younger players develop and play hard, and sometimes when you have these guys out there and they're losing, it just gets too stale. I don't care how good the player is. People, they're not going to want to go see Chapman at this point. That's not what they pay to get a ticket.
No. And they're not going to, and more to Mike's point, they're not going to be able to keep these guys.
No.
Yeah.
They're not going to re-sign Aroldis Chapman.
No.
You got to be on crack to think you're going to re-sign that dude.
Well,
yeah.
And why would you? I mean, the guy throws 102 miles per hour. How long is he going to be able to keep that up? I mean, he's a great player. I mean, he is probably the most dominant closer I think I've ever seen, except for Mariano Rivera. But if he comes in the game, and except for the past 2 weeks, it's over. And he's also probably the most exciting player to watch in baseball right now. But it's crazy to think he's going to be able to keep throwing 102 miles per hour. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Let me
He's
ask you this,
learning,
though.
but still.
What if a year ago, 2 years ago, we make him a starter? How different is our team right now?
Oh, it's amazing because you would have dealt one of those other starters earlier because you would have had a surplus of starting pitchers. And so instead of having, at the end of last season, being like, oh, well, in 1 year, 4 of our 5 starting pitchers are going to be free agents, it would only have been 2 or 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's where I think it comes back to, they have said for a long time, Jocketty has said over and over again, we're not going to mortgage the future for the present. We're going to continue to try to build a long-term winner here. But then someone dropped the ball, because how do you end up in a situation where you have 4 of your 5 starting pitchers all coming to free agency at the same time? I mean, that's just defies logic to think that no one saw that coming until last year, or they were clearly focused on winning now and not building a long-term winning product. Because if you're building a long-term winning product, you make sure that you don't have that happen.
Yep. Well, what do we got? We got this day in Reds history. Is that what we have?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, this day
I
in
can't believe
Reds-
this seemed like it was only yesterday.
This day in Reds history, the Braves deal outfielder Deion Sanders to the Reds for outfielder Roberto Kelly and minor league hurler Robert Etheridge,
Wow.
who will never appear in a major league game. Kelly remained in Atlanta for 1 season, batted .286 in 63 games, while Sanders stays in Cincinnati 4 years, compiling a .260 average for the team. I remember, I'm one of the guys that gets those nosebleed seats. You know, I don't get to sit down low. But I remember being up high one time watching Deion hit, and he put a ball in the gap. I've never seen someone first or third that fast. I mean,
I saw him score first. He came in from first.
Yeah, I mean, he was so fast. He was just a fun player to watch. You know, I wish Hamilton could be anything sort of close to. I mean, Deion wasn't the greatest.
No, but if Billy Hamilton could hit
Yeah.
the way Deion Sanders hit, which was not great. I don't know what his lifetime average was. I can't believe it was above 250.
260.
That's
Well,
what
not. I mean, that was for the team. I don't know about lifetime.
But my point being is, I would take that in a heartbeat and say, Billy Hamilton, you're the starting center fielder forever. Because what you become, I'll even go even deeper into baseball than Deion. You become a guy that the Yankees had back in their heyday in the 70s, Mickey Rivers. You got a guy that can hit and can run, and Hamilton's got a better arm than Mickey Rivers could ever hope for. So it's kind of like, I would take that. The problem with Hamilton is he's hitting, at last check, 102 with runners in scoring position. And they now have him batting ninth, which to me is just, they've thrown their hands up with Billy Hamilton.
That's
It's embarrassing.
That is one step above, we're sending you to the minors.
Right.
yeah.
They have thrown their hands up with Billy Hamilton. And I think the only thing that's saving him up here is the fact he can play defense.
Yeah,
can
he
play
plays
center.
he's
great
great.
defense. I saw him make an amazing diving catch on Saturday that I thought there was no way he was getting to that ball.
But he can't do anything for that offense because he can't get on base.
Yeah.
And again, this to me is a product of there's something going wrong along the way in that minor league system they have of getting guys to the majors. This is, the first thing I would do with Billy Hamilton, and again, the last guy that I helped reach the majors will be my first, the next one will be my first. I would say you're no longer a switch hitter. That we appreciate the fact that you can bat left-handed. Your natural position is right-handed. You bat better right-handed. The more you take swings in the cage, left-handed is more than what you are going to be able to do to improve your swing overall. It's the first thing I do. Second thing I do with this dude is I would go somehow, some way, find Pete Rose, put him at a batting cage in Western Hills, hand Hamilton a $5,000 check and say, this is what we want you to do. This is what you're going to do. Here's the money for doing it. Go find the guy with the bad haircut. I would. This guy is too valuable to be hitting ninth in a batting order anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, the switch hitting argument is great, and I've read some really great interviews about the whole sort of philosophy behind switch hitting. And I've read a lot of people who really know baseball who have said, look, if you are a right-handed batter, why on earth would you ever become a switch hitter? Because I think it's something like 72% of starting pitchers or pitchers in Major League Baseball are righties. So 72% of the time you're going to bat from your non-dominant hand. Why would you shortchange yourself 72% of the time and go hit from the lesser side of your batting stance? If you're a lefty, then it makes more sense because you can avoid those tough lefty-on-lefty matchups coming out of the bullpen. But if you're a righty and that's your dominant hand, it's a waste of your time, and it just hurts you.
It's a sabermetrics thing, I guess, right? I mean, they think you fare better against right-handers if you're left-handed, or if you bat left-handed. So, I don't know.
Who's the only guy doing it well for us? Pena? Is he?
Pena's a good hitter.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the only guy that's doing it.
He still has a dominant hand. I mean, all of them have a dominant hand. Now, just the question is if I think Pena's natural is lefty, actually. But
yeah. I mean, he's batting .296. He's hitting well.
Yeah, you just don't know if they batted their dominant hand the whole time, how would they actually hit against the same side.
But
Less to concentrate on, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of a lefty who's not hit, I mean, Votto is really sinking, it seems. I mean, I think he's around 275 right now.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before. So before, Votto was hitting great, and you weren't getting anything from Bruce and Bird. Now, Bruce and Bird are coming around, Votto's not hitting. It's like, that's the real problem in my view. It's not necessarily, I mean, it manifests itself in bad batting average with runners in scoring position. But the problem is they have no consistency across their lineup.
None.
So the guys who are hitting, Frazier, Bird, Bruce, get on base, they get into scoring position, but there's all these gaps in the batting order. So you come and you get a guy on, but the next three guys are ice cold, so you're not going to get that guy in because regardless whether there's a runner on base or not, Votto's not hitting. So it just shows up more in the runners in scoring position.
And now they got him batting second again.
Yeah.
Because it's the second place in that order is like Boys Town. They try to rehabilitate people there.
And leadoff. I mean, how many different leadoff hitters have they had this year? They had Phillips, they had Cozart. Somebody else was batting there besides Hamilton.
Poor Phillips, he does he'll bat fourth, first. He's done that for a long time now. I mean,
but to play to Mike's point,
pitcher first.
You have this team has no leadoff hitter.
No.
It has no cleanup hitter. It has a guy that's supposed to be a three-hole hitter batting second. There's so much wrong with this team that it's going to take not just one trade, not just Cueto. It's going to take Cueto and Pena and Chapman. They have to completely retool what's going on here. And you can keep Votto, and you can keep Frazier, and you can keep Mesoraco. But after that, I don't know what else you keep, because I don't know what else you got, those three young pitchers, but I don't know what you got going forward that's going to help you in 2016. And I would include Billy Hamilton and Jay Bruce in that conversation.
I would trade Mesoraco now. I mean, knowing
he's got one leg.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be in the American League now and just concentrate on hitting. But you know what? The worst thing that's going to happen is we're not going to make any trades. We're going to be 30 games out, and everyone catches fire when we end 20 games out.
Well,
we can't be afraid to trade these guys. I mean, look at the Astros. They were supposed to be a horrible team.
Yeah, and they've built a great system by every year they trade their best guy and then they stockpile guys. That's the same thing with the Pirates. Look at the young talent on the Pirates, and they've got some guys who are underperforming this year. But that is a great young core nucleus of a team, and it's been built by year after year. When it comes to the deadline, they're out of it. They trade and they get 2 or 3 guys back.
You know who they hired to start all that? They hired a guy from BaseballProspectus.com as their personnel guy, a guy named Kevin Goldstein. They hired him when they went in there and they just said, "We're just tearing this thing down to zero." Now we're gonna draft well. You know what's the dude's name? George Springer. You know, he was responsible for Springer going there. They just layered it out, and you peel off a layer, and all of a sudden you find 2 or 3 more prospects. You peel off a layer in this minor league organization the Reds have, and you can't find anything.
The Band-Aid
you
is
look at Stevenson and Winker. They get worse as the weeks go on.
Yeah.
They're buried in Double-A.
That's bad.
Anyway, let's look at these standings here if you want to talk about bad.
Glad the Astros aren't in our division anymore.
Now remember, the Reds started the season 4-0, so let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, weren't we 500 a week? Yeah, what's going on here?
11 and a half out and sinking fast.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the wild card race, I mean,
falling out.
Yeah, there's just, it's just not good any way you slice it. And I just think the quicker they can, I think it's almost like, you're sick and you need treatment. You know what I mean? I don't know what's wrong with you. You got some ailment. You need treatment. And all you want to do is let's just start the treatment so we can start getting better.
Well, the good news about this standings here, none of those teams are particularly that good. I mean, I think the Cubs are, the best ones under the line. If the Reds,
No.
Price had
Don't say it. Do not
Ken,
say it.
They had a closed-door meeting yesterday.
Oh, boy.
That would change it all.
Yeah, but it wasn't
Here we
locked.
go,
It was
right?
just closed.
Don't
I mean,
It was
say it.
closed. They might have had, who knows, some beers and just
Yeah,
hash
that's
things
it.
out,
Right, they had
I mean,
some
let's
beer.
get it going. They got Strasburg,
Right, a couple cigars. Right.
And
Coming.
Back to the
Gigantic
Future
cake.
predicted it. Cubs win the World Series 2015.
Oh my God!
I want to know who called that meeting because I'm just very curious to see.
I
who's
think
actually
Brian
starting
Price
up.
did.
I don't think it was.
Really?
It didn't sound that way to me.
It didn't say anything. It just said a closed door meeting.
I think it was a
don't know.
closed door meeting for the players to have a card to sign to Brian Price to say thank you for all your efforts.
What I read is Brian Price led the closed-door meeting. So I don't know if he called it, but I think he was the one running it, and I'm not sure if anyone else talked.
No, if you got to have a closed-door meeting to jumpstart your team, you're in trouble. Who do we have in here? The Nationals?
Yeah, we got some. We're calling up the next game.
Strasburg is going to throw. Great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at a team
Sure.
like the Nationals. They're running
Strasburg.
out there Strasburg, Gio Gonzalez, and Tanner Roark. Any of those three guys right now, with Cueto, elbow being a little bulky, any of those three guys would be the best starter in your rotation.
And I guess Sunday is blank because it might be Cueto.
Better hope it's Cueto, because if it's not, I think it's Marquis.
Well, here's the deal.
It's not Cueto, he's gone, right?
If they want to trade Cueto, they got to get him out there and get him throwing at this
Yeah,
point
good
so they
point.
can prove to everybody he's
But
okay.
you know what I was wondering about? So that's one scenario. You want to get him out there and get him playing. If Cueto has like a bulky elbow and say misses the second half of the season, do they get him back on a short-term deal with a hometown discount because no one wants to take a chance on the guy with a potential injury?
I still think regardless of that you've got a guy that finished second in Cy Young voting in 14 with a team that didn't make the playoffs. And okay, maybe he doesn't get $22 million a year. I'll settle for $18 million, but it won't be here.
That's so sad, though.
It won't be here.
It's coming to that.
Yeah.
Hey, is this guy hurt? Maybe we'll get a deal. Oh, man. That's sad. That's sad territory.
Just the way my brain works.
Well, that's smart, though.
Well, the best part about this is regardless of what they do with Cueto, we're back next week.
All right.
On
We'll be
Thursday
back.
at
It's
1:30.
exciting.
And I might point out that all of this is available for your downloading pleasure on WCPO.com. So it's up there 24/7, 356, as the kids like to say. The Fifth Mascot, it's the definitive show about your Cincinnati Reds, whether they're in first place, 11 and a half games out of first place, or so far out of first place, you need binoculars to see first place.